Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Check out their website, fullpresscoverage.com, for this and other great podcasts, lots of articles, great sports content. It is a fantastic time of year to be a sports fan with the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs, baseball season's in full swing. There's still interesting things happening all the time in football. Heck, Tim Tebow just signed a freaking contract. So great time to go check out fullpresscoverage.com for all sorts of great content to stay up on the latest news. And you can find this podcast there and wherever podcasts are found. I know my co-host, John Sapichetti, is very happy today, not just because Tim Tebow signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but because his Los Angeles Lakers managed to pull out a very, very close victory in what has been deemed, Sap, the single greatest play-in tournament game in NBA history.
Sure, there've been four of them so far, and that was certainly the best one. San Antonio, Memphis was kind of a boring game. The Celtics took control in the third quarter and kind of glided home with Jason Tatum scoring 50 points. And I'm still not sure what the Charlotte Hornets were or weren't doing against the Indiana Pacers, but we all expected Lakers Golden State to deliver because you've got the two biggest stars in the NBA going at it, and LeBron James and Steph Curry. And I think both guys delivered and showed why they're great players. Steph, again, just kept Golden State in that game the entire way. He hit some threes that were just incredible, which we shouldn't call incredible because he hits those types of shots.
Sure.
And LeBron had his well-rounded game. He struggled at times shooting the basketball. You could see he doesn't have the lift he normally has. It's going to be a process for him to get close to 100% in these playoffs, but he was able to hit the 34-foot shot with a little less than a minute left, which was the victory for the LA Lakers, and they move on now as the 7 seed. So the Celtics are the 7 seed in the East. The Lakers are the 7 seed in the West. Not the high standards that you're used to for those two franchises, but I also think that the Celtics don't really have a prayer against the Brooklyn Nets in the East, and I think the Lakers already have been established as a pretty prohibitive favorite over Phoenix in the Western Conference. In fact, if you want to bet the Lakers in that series, you put up 300 to make 100. If you want Phoenix, you put up 100 to make 240. So the Lakers, despite being the 7 seed, not having home court advantage, you've been on this all year. Long as they get in and are somewhat healthy, they're probably going to win the West. And I think you saw a lot of that last night. They do have their flaws, but the one thing they bring pretty much every night is defense, and that's what kept them in that game and allowed them to come back and take a lead in the fourth quarter and then have LeBron hit that huge shot with a minute left to win the game.
Yeah, and they're just, defensively, they're very good, but they're just so big. You talked about this yesterday, Sap. I mean, it's very tough to score when you're going against guys every single matchup. They're bigger than you at basically every position. So, it's a really, really tall task, no pun intended, to put the ball in the basket against the Lakers. And you saw it last night that Golden State's one of the best offensive teams in the league. In fact, when Curry plays, I believe they're the best offensive team in the league. And they held them to 100 points, which in 2021 in the NBA, that's not very many points.
No.
So they're just really, really talented defensively, and typically it's those teams that go far in the postseason. LeBron hit the big shot, but more than that, it was the total defensive effort from the team. And like we expected, Sap, Curry got his points because he has to in order for them to even be competitive in games, the Warriors. The Lakers were able to just keep him cool enough in order to win by 3. So what I looked at as the most impressive thing in that game for the Lakers is this is something the Celtics don't do. The Lakers went down in the first half, but they didn't go down that big. Even though they were playing like crap, they didn't make it an insurmountable lead. So when the Celtics, the 7th seed in the East, go down in the first half because they come out flat all the time, they'll go down 20 plus points. The Lakers kept it to low double digits, to 12, 13, 11, within striking distance. So by the time they really started to kick it up a gear in the third quarter, they were able to recapture the lead because it wasn't that big of a gap, despite the fact that the Warriors were pretty hot in the first half and the Lakers were cold. And I said to all my friends in our group thread we have, I said, if you are on Bovada, or if you have a bookie, put in the Lakers in the second half. They're winning this game. I could just tell at this point, Sap, and I'm sure you too, you've watched enough basketball and enough good teams to know, even if they're playing poorly, if they can keep it in striking distance, they should be able to come back and win this game. And that's exactly what they did.
the Lakers were god awful in the first half. Golden State pretty much perfect in the first half. Yet it was only a 13-point lead. And in this NBA, 13-point lead feels sometimes like an 8 or a 9-point lead because of how many times teams take three-pointers and can get hot from three. And then again, the Lakers do play the best defense in the league, so they were able to whittle it down. And then eventually in the fourth quarter, take a 7-point lead themselves. So they outscored Golden State by 20 points over about a 15-minute stretch from the third quarter into the fourth quarter. And then, to the surprise of no one, Steph Curry brought Golden State back, and it was a really entertaining game. Now Golden State has to play Memphis. If they can win that game, they'll be the 8th seed, and they'll take on Utah. And Golden State's always going to have some sort of puncher's chance because Steph can go out and get 42, 45 points efficiently, not like he has to take 35 shots to get there. The rest of their team, they kind of play their roles. We see Draymond Green doesn't score, but man, he still defends and still passes and still rebounds. Andrew Wiggins, I thought, did a nice job last night, especially on the defensive end against a hobbled LeBron James. But yeah, when you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, two of the very best players in the league, engaged defensively, that trickles down to the rest of your team. I think you see Andre Drummond sometimes feels like a fish out of water with this team. He only played 17 minutes. The Lakers are best when AD is playing the five. He doesn't like to, but you'll see down the stretch he'll be playing the five. LeBron will be handling the ball more because Dennis Schroeder was god awful last night. And your guy, Alex Caruso, if he wore Celtic green, would be one of your favorite players, I'm sure. He came up big last night, hit some big shots, and did a great job defensively against Steph Curry. The Lakers are at a point where they have the two great players. Neither is at 100%, but they need someone to step up and be that third guy. Last night, it was Alex Caruso. When they get to Phoenix, maybe it'll be Dennis Schroeder or Kyle Kuzma or whoever. They do need one player to step up to help out the two great stars.
Yeah, fortunately, they have a lot of options, in terms
Hmm.
of we don't look at the roster as, a great roster, but they have a lot of guys who can play their specific role and who are capable of stepping up if they need them to do it, like those guys you just mentioned. You also have guys like Wes Matthews, Horton Tucker, plenty of guys that are capable of doing it. And you even saw guys like, Macklemore and Morris didn't play
Hmm.
last night, and they're capable
Right.
of doing it too in a given game or two games. I think with Drummond, the tricky thing is that you can't really play him at the end of a game in a close game
Hmm.
because the free throw shooting is such a liability.
It
So
really
that
is.
that's been sort of something that's plagued him his whole career is that you can't keep him on the floor late in games because if he touches the ball, the team will just foul him if it's close. That's the best strategy, really, especially when you have LeBron and Anthony Davis on the court. You don't want them having the ball, having a chance to score. You saw what happened. LeBron, launched a 3-pointer with desperation and hit it. So I'd rather put uh, Andre Drummond at the free throw line than have the ball in LeBron James' hands at the end of a game. Period. Uh, Sorry, go ahead, Sap.
No, best case scenario with Andre Drummond at the free throw line is probably 1 for 2. He's essentially a 50% free throw shooter. Now, if you look at the end of a game when a guy of that size who may be fatigued, those numbers probably go down. He's a nice player. He doesn't really fit into the NBA of 2021. He's more of an old school back to the basket center. But he can give them some quality minutes. But they are best when Anthony Davis is at the five and LeBron's handling the ball. And give Frank Vogel, or if you want to say LeBron James, credit for making the coaching decision to take Drummond out in the fourth quarter. He had played 17 minutes, but Vogel or LeBron James, who's ever coaching that team, felt that they'd be more effective with Anthony Davis at the five. And they also took out Dennis Schroeder down the stretch. He was terrible last night. And they went with Alex Caruso, and then they run the offense through LeBron James. Part of LeBron James' greatness is he is so damn versatile. We can argue if he's the greatest player of all time. I think he is. You think Michael Jordan is. Those are the two candidates for that title. He's the most versatile player we've ever seen. I mean, he's a point guard. He's a power forward. He could play center if necessary. His natural position is small forward. He could do it all. He's the human Swiss Army knife, right? You need rebounds, he'll go do that. You need scoring, he can do that. He drives to the basket probably better than anybody that's ever played in the NBA. And then, oh, by the way, he's a great passer. So he can kind of fill in the cracks wherever necessary, depending on who's playing at a decent level for the Lakers. That's why they're dangerous because, within a game, you may have a player like Dennis Schroeder have a good quarter and then mail it in from there. And at that point, LeBron can take over the point guard duties and you go from there. And you hope that Caruso steps up defensively, that KCP can hit some threes. And at that point, they'll be tough to beat. But it was an exciting game. Again, you got to see the two biggest stars in the league, not necessarily two best players. I think Steph's somewhere around 5 or 6 as the best player in the league because he is quite a liability on defense. But he and LeBron are the two biggest stars, and I think LeBron's already recruiting him for the summer of 2022.
Wow, man, that would be really unfortunate to see that. But yeah, I think it's getting. Listen, Steph's. I've grown on me a little bit this year. Still not to the point where I think it's getting out of control, where people rate him all time. And I saw that Kenny Smith said that right now Steph's the best player on the planet. No, he's not. It's still LeBron
No,
James. There's only one thing that Steph does, maybe two if you count dribbling, better than LeBron James. LeBron's a better rebounder, passer, defender, post player,
right.
everything. He's honestly, he's a better point guard than Steph is, pure by definition of
Decision maker, yeah.
a distributor and decision maker. He's better at it than
Jet,
Steph. Steph's just a much better shooter, and he's probably a better dribbler. But that's it, really. That's it.
Steph has a propensity to get turnovers in big situations. He had some turnovers in the fourth quarter last night. He had 6 in that game. Draymond Green had 6 turnovers. The big difference was Golden State committed 20 turnovers. The Lakers only committed 11. LeBron's pretty careful with the basketball. He'll have his moments where he will lose the basketball because it's in his hand so often. Yeah, I mean, all around player, it's LeBron James still. And then you can go to, say, Kevin Durant, who can play solidly on the defensive end and happens to be a 7-foot guy who can't be stopped. Yeah, there's other players you'd put up there. As far as a pure shooter, no, we've never seen anything quite like Steph Curry and the impact he has on the game, but he is a liability on defense. He kind of makes some plays on defense, cheating a little bit, and he'll get that loose ball off a long rebound, and he's a good passer. But no, he's not the all-around player LeBron James is. I think we went from forgetting how great Steph was a couple years ago to maybe underrating him and forgetting about him. And then when he missed time last year, only played a handful of games, and then he came back this year and he was must-watch TV the second half of the year. You have a tendency to overrate players when you miss them at that point. But I don't think LeBron's given up that title as the best all-around player yet, and I think he's had that title for 12 to 15 years.
Yeah, it's just that listen, Steph won the scoring title this year,
Mm-hmm.
and you could make an argument he's the best scorer in the league right now. He certainly
Mm-hmm.
was this season. But I don't know what Kenny Smith is thinking, saying he's the best player in the league right now. If you're the best player in the league right now, your team doesn't end up as the 8 seed. Even that roster's not great. It's not god awful. It's not, the
No,
Pistons or the Magic. I mean, they do have some players on it. Green is still, he's going to make an all NBA defensive team. Bazemore is a above average player. I think a lot of people really like Wiggins. I know you do. I
he's
like
growing.
Toscano
Yeah,
Anderson. They're not, I mean, it's not, listen, I'm not going to make it seem like they're a great roster, but it's not bare bones god awful.
Jet, not to get off on a tangent here, but that roster, Golden State got into the play-in tournament, and I hope they beat Memphis. I'd rather see Golden State play Utah than Memphis play Utah, just to see Steph Curry play another handful of games. And like I said, they always have a puncher's chance. The Cleveland roster in 2018, when LeBron brought them to the finals, and Kevin Love was their second best player, but he missed a lot of time with concussion issue. Jeff Green was probably their second best player in that playoff run. I think this Golden State team, taking the 2 superstars out, is better than that Cleveland roster
Yeah,
in
I agree.
2018. And LeBron got them to the finals and had a lead in game 1. And if, they seal the deal late in that game, who knows what that series is. Most people think if the
5.
Cavaliers won game 1, then it would go 5. Probably. I mean, the Warriors, those back-to-back titles with KD winning the finals MVP, those teams were ridiculous. They would have beaten just about any team in the history of the NBA, including Jordan's Bulls. I don't know if they would have beat the Celtics or the Lakers in the 80s, because those teams are so deep and they could beat you in so many different ways. But that's another discussion for another time. It is a conversation, and LeBron dragged a sorry-ass team to the finals. Steph does what he does, but I don't know if he impacts the team quite as much as LeBron does, because LeBron's great 94 feet by 50 feet. Steph is great, 47 feet by 50 feet, because that's kind of his shooting range. I mean, he can shoot from 47 feet, but as we saw last night, LeBron can nail a 3 from 34 feet. Not bad.
Yeah, I hate doing this, Sap, because it makes it seem like I'm, defending LeBron all the time when I'm not, a huge LeBron guy.
I'm rubbing off on you.
I acknowledge the greatness, but it's like I do, and I can't abide somebody saying Steph Curry's better than him right now.
No,
it just doesn't make any sense.
Right. I mean, look, I'm an Aaron Rodgers guy, right? That's my guy. Tom Brady's a better quarterback. He has 7 Super Bowls. My guy has 1. Brady beat Rodgers in the NFC Championship game just 4 months ago. Now I can delve into the numbers and say that it was more Green Bay's defense that was bad that day, not necessarily Aaron Rodgers, but Rodgers had opportunities to win that game. I think Rodgers is a better pure passer than Tom Brady. It doesn't make him a better quarterback. So yeah, my favorite player being Aaron Rodgers. I can't say he's the greatest quarterback of all time. People love Steph Curry. I love Steph Curry. I think he's a joy to watch. Kids love him. I think he plays the right way. I've never seen anybody move without the basketball quite like him. And that's something that's kind of lost in the game now with a lot of, pick and roll and ISO. You don't have players moving without the basketball as beautifully as Steph Curry. But to put him as the best player in the league, no, he's not. I mean, because he is a hindrance on the defensive end. And that's an important part of basketball, even more so in the postseason when you get into a best of 7 series, you can hunt down the worst defender on the other team. We're going to see Brooklyn do that with Kemba Walker. They're going to try to seek him out and make the Celtics pay for Kemba Walker being a poor defensive player. If Golden State wins this second play-in tournament game and has to play Utah, I'm sure the Jazz will do the same thing. You don't go hunting LeBron James on the defensive end because he's a defensive stopper when he's engaged.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, and by nature of the position, Sap, I don't know that a point guard can ever be the best player in the NBA, just because other guys are getting more rebounds. They're going to be better defensively because they're bigger. That's just how it is. Listen, Chris Paul is one of the best defensive point guards I've ever seen. Gary Payton, maybe the best defensive point guard I've ever seen. And as great as they are on defense, and they're very good on offense, it's still not. They still were never the best player in the league.
No.
At a given time. It's sort of the nature of the position. I don't love having to defend LeBron James, but I also think it's out of control to say Steph Curry is the best player in the NBA right now. It just doesn't make sense to me to
welcome
how
aboard,
you could
Jet.
think that. It doesn't make
sense.
Aboard.
Welcome aboard to my train. It's starting to fill up. The other thing is, I think you could go back to Magic Johnson when he was the best player in basketball. And there was a period where he was the best player in basketball. After Bird started getting injuries and before Michael really took over the league.
But he was only
Magic Johnson was the best player.
Freak.
He was a freak. LeBron, the last few years, has played a lot of point guard. He's a freak. I mean, we're talking 6'9". Yeah, it's tough for a 6'2" or a 6'3" point guard like Steph Curry to be the best player in the league. He can't rebound like LeBron. He can't defend like LeBron. He can't score inside like LeBron. As far as a perimeter shooter and a scorer in general, he's lights out. He's the best shooter
the best
I've ever
offensive
seen.
player in the league right now, I have no problem with that. If that's what you want to
go
call
with
him,
that.
That's fine.
Yep, that's fine.
That doesn't mean you're the best player.
I would still say Kevin Durant's better because Kevin Durant does pretty much everything Steph Curry does, right? I mean, there's not much that I don't know if there's anything Steph Curry does better than Kevin Durant, except his ball handling ability. Like Durant has the same range as Steph Curry. Durant can launch 40-foot 3-pointers pretty handily, and he's 7 feet tall. He's 9 inches taller.
By the way, Sap, the same hindrances that you have as a smaller point guard, so you can't defend bigger guys, they have that advantage in ball handling because they're closer to the ground, so they can be a better ball handler. That's just how it works.
And Steph, as great as he is not the best ball handler in the league. It's someone who I know despise. Kyrie Irving is the best ball handler that I've seen since Isaiah Thomas. That's how good Kyrie Irving is as a ball handler, and Curry's right there. But Kyrie Irving's ball handling ability is supernatural.
Yeah, you're really frustrating me today because I'm having to agree with these points that I don't want to make.
You love LeBron now. You're agreeing that Kyrie Irving is the best ball handler. Like, what's next?
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm trying.
Well, let's talk about, since we're talking about LeBron, let's talk about the big shot he hit, Sap. Now, it wasn't a game winner technically at the buzzer, but it was the biggest shot in the game, and it was the shot that iced it for the Lakers. As the shot clock is expiring, he heaves it over Steph Curry. Actually, I think I saw this, Sap. It was the longest field goal he made this season.
34 feet, which surprises me because he can look. He's so big and strong, and you saw in that shot that he really had the perfect form. He was kind of fading back a little bit, but when you're that big and talented and strong, you don't have to have perfect form. That was a nice stroke in hitting that shot. So that was pure. I know some people are saying, "Oh, it was a lucky shot." No, he didn't bank it in. It was pretty much as close to a swish without being a swish. And I get that other than Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, and Kevin Durant, when someone hits a 34-footer, there's an element of, well, they really weren't trying to do that. But it was at the end of the shot clock. He had to hoist it, which always leads me back to my point about LeBron James, saying this for years. that when the decision is taken out, he's a much better shooter and a much more clutch player than people ever want to give him credit for. He sometimes gets paralysis by analysis and he overthinks the situation. Remember Peyton Manning used to do this? He'd get to the line of scrimmage, spend 10 seconds up there changing the play, and all of a sudden wouldn't work. Sometimes too much thinking is not good. And sometimes LeBron does that. I think that's why LeBron struggles at the free throw line at times. He was 6 for 9 last night. He's essentially now become a 70% free throw shooter, which makes no sense. He should be minimum 80%. He's got a nice looking stroke. It's not like
What's
he
he
has a
analyzing
broken
at the
shot
free throw line, Sap?
the whole game. I did now everything slows down and he can just overanalyze. Rather go up there and shoot. You've got a
He
nice
should
shot.
close
You're the
his eyes,
best
right, at the
player.
free throw line.
Or get blurred like he was last night. He was seeing three
Oh, come
rims
on.
out of his left eye. Well, as a man that's very cognizant of his vision, I understand what my man was going through. That's never fun getting poked in the eye. And of course, he over dramatized it, but that's what basketball players do. I mean, Michael Jordan had the flu game, as I used air quotes. I mean, okay, he was hungover. That's fine. So, but I just want to run these numbers by people because people always say, well, LeBron's really not clutch. He would rather pass in a big situation. He runs from taking the big shot. In the postseason in their careers, game tying or go ahead field goal attempts with less than 10 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter or overtime, LeBron James is 12 of 23 in those situations. That's 52%. Michael Jordan is 7 of 15 in that situation, 47%. Kobe Bryant, 5 of 22, 21%. LeBron's made as many of those shots as Kobe and Michael Jordan combined. We can all agree, final 10 seconds of the fourth quarter, overtime, game tying or game winning field goal attempts. Is that clutch?
Yeah, it is. I think he's clutch, honestly, Sap. I mean, I've seen him play the Celtics enough where I've seen him hit multiple daggers over them, and
Right.
that's why I wasn't surprised at all when that shot went in because I've seen
Yep.
him do it a million times. I mean, listen, I tweeted this out. He's not the greatest 3-point shooter in the world. He's not terrible. He's not Marcus Smart.
He's
Um,
average. He's
he's
average. He's
average.
like
He's fine.
36%, which is
But
higher than
but
than Kobe and Jordan's career numbers were. But I will say that when Jordan was playing, they weren't taking threes. When Kobe was playing, they took more threes, and now they take a ton of threes. So we can use that into context with those three great players.
yeah, so in my tweet, I was saying, he's not the greatest 3-point shooter in the world, but I've seen him do it and hit those shots enough where I'm scared to death if he's taking a three at the
Sure.
end of the game. I've seen him do it a million times. He's hit so many of these big backbreaker three. I mean, that was a backbreaker to the
Yep.
Warriors. Really, it was because they just weren't expecting it. They defended it as well as they possibly could. They felt like they were in good position to have a tie game and have the ball with under a minute left. And instead, LeBron puts them up by 3 and the Warriors didn't score again in that game.
No, that was a massive shot. I mean, Kyrie Irving gets a lot of credit, deservedly so, for hitting the 3 in Game 7 of the 2016 Finals. That came with about a minute left. The difference, obviously, that was Game 7 of the Finals. This was a play-in tournament game. And also in that game, no one could seem to score for the final 5 minutes. Both teams just, I won't say choked, but, Game 7, NBA Finals, after a long season, sometimes things get tight out there. We talked about the Celtics Lakers Game 7 in 2010, 83-79. When you get to Game 7 of an NBA Finals, you're going to see lower scoring. You're going to see more intensity on the defensive end. Kyrie's shot, we all consider a clutch shot. So if that was a clutch shot, last night was a clutch shot. I don't think so. And
Undoubtedly.
I don't think it was a lucky shot. If he had banked it in or whatever, you could say, okay, he just tossed it up there. But even then, guys practice those shots. So
I don't think
give
there's
the guy
lucky shots
credit.
in the NBA, except for heaves, full court, half court
Right.
heaves. I don't think there are lucky shots in the NBA. I mean, these guys are professionals. They're trying to put it in every time. So if they put it in, they're trying to do it. It's not luck. These guys are the most skilled basketball players on planet Earth. I don't like that term lucky shot. In college, sure. In the NBA, no.
Well, my favorite thing is when people break down quarterbacks that they don't like. Like if you're a Brady guy, you hate Rodgers and you hate Mahomes, and they'll say, you see that touchdown pass Mahomes threw, it traveled 68 yards, but the wide receiver had a wait a split second to catch it. I go, well, there's not a lot of dudes, even in the NFL, that can throw a ball 68 yards that accurately. Remember the big pass that Mahomes made when it was 3rd and 15 against San Francisco in the Super Bowl? If they don't complete that pass, San Francisco is probably going to win the game because the 49ers were up by 10 at that point, midway through
Right.
the fourth quarter. And he just went back about 15 yards and threw it 65 yards down the field to Tyreek Hill. And Skip Bayless always says, well, Tyreek Hill had to wait. He could have fair caught it. I'm like, how many guys do you know going backwards throw the ball 65 yards that far downfield? Like two. So I love when people nitpick players they don't like. How many guys can even come remotely close to hitting a basket from 35 feet out? I mean, if he banked it in, then that's the case. I mean, Tim Duncan was famous for banking him in. I think he intended to do that.
Chris, there's
Dominique
a reason the
Wilkins,
backboard's there. It's part of the
it's
game.
there for a reason. Yeah. So, I mean, no lucky shots. Like you said, unless it's, the guy picks it at his own foul line and hurls it 79 feet down the court. Okay. That's skill though, because you still need to have some athletic ability to throw a basketball 79 feet close to a rim. And
Right.
again, we are talking about the best guys in their sport, so it shouldn't come as a surprise.
By the way, with the half court shots, again, not lucky. They practice that every day. Every single day they
Yeah,
practice half court heaves and have since middle school, probably.
exactly.
That's why you see a lot of them go in, because that's what they do. They practice it.
Yeah, it's like no hitters in baseball now. There's one every
Oh,
night.
jeez. Yeah, man, it's getting out of control with baseball. I mean, I actually, on a different show, maybe I'd be curious to hear your thoughts as to why that's happening, because I know you love those three true outcomes, and I'm assuming that probably has something to do
That's
with
the
it.
biggest reason. Yeah, people just get up there and hack. Like, there's a shift, and instead of, just taking a single to the opposite field or whatever, maybe dropping a bunt, everybody just swings from their asses, and, guys are throwing 100 miles an hour, and you don't get a hit, and that's the end of it. There've been 6 no hitters so
That's
far in the major
wild.
leagues, a quarter of the way through the season. That doesn't even count Madison Bumgarner, who had a 7 inning no hit game because it was a part of a doubleheader. And I don't think he should get credit for that because there's only 21 outs in a 7 inning game. A no hitter is 27
No, you
outs.
got to
And so
finish it. Yeah.
as much as I love Madison Bumgarner, it was only a 7 inning game. That's not a no hitter, but 6 other ones. And we're only a quarter of the way in the season. It's kind of cheapened it, but it's still an interesting thing to see. It's like these guys hitting half court shots. You're right, Jet. When Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, I think they're the 3 guys that kind of stand out more than anyone else. And when Klay Thompson comes back, those 4 guys, when they take and make half court shots, I'm really not surprised. Like they can
Tatum's
do it in the
starting to
flow
do
of
it a
an
lot
offense.
too.
Tatum also, and again, Tatum 6'10". So that Curry and Lillard, it's kind of amazing because they're not big guys. I mean,
No, it's
Durant's
like
7 feet.
50% chance that they're gonna can
It's
it.
crazy. It's just, and if they miss, it's right there. It's no different than the great quarterbacks. I mean, we see Brady, Rodgers, Mahomes, Russell Wilson. I mean, they're throwing balls 60 yards downfield, right
It's
through a
part of
wide
their skill
receiver.
set, Sap. It's
That's
part of
why
their
they're the
skill set.
best at what they do. I mean, we're not surprised if we go see a Shakespeare play and Daniel Day-Lewis nails the lines. He's the best actor in the world. We expect him to do that.
Sap, one last point about the game before we get into the quick flagrant foul thing. I do want to
Mhm.
say, so right after that LeBron 3, and that's, I think you saw what the real flaw is of the Warriors, is that they only had a one-track mind. We got to get
Yep.
the ball to Steph. We don't know
Yep.
how else we're going to score or come back to this game. Get the ball to Steph, get the ball to Steph, get the ball to Steph. And ultimately, the Lakers knew exactly what they were trying to do. I mean, they just swarmed him, and it resulted
Yep.
in Jordan Poole having to take a 3 from the corner that he missed because he's Jordan Poole and not Steph Curry,
Mhm.
or not Klay Thompson. And so when you have that sort of one-track mind philosophy that you think the only way we can win this game or come back in this game, or the only person who can hit this type of shot is just one player, then it becomes really easy to key in defensively on what the other team wants to do. And ultimately, I think that's why the Warriors lost the game, because at the end, they still had a minute left when LeBron hit that shot, or
Right.
58 seconds or so. Plenty of time to be able to score baskets, but they weren't thinking 2. They weren't thinking get a quick, easy bucket. They were thinking get the ball to Steph. Hopefully he hits a 3-pointer to tie it. That was their only thought.
Yeah, and then the Lakers, who play outstanding defense and are that big. I mean, if AD comes out in addition to Alex Caruso, you've got a lot of size there. I mean, we've seen AD, what makes him such a unique defensive player. He's not just a rim protector. You can't just be a rim protector and be a great defender anymore in the NBA because there's not a lot of driving to the basket. You still have a lot of 3-point shooting. And we've seen AD, I think there was a regular season game where he blocked a 3-pointer to secure the win for the Lakers. That's something that Patrick Ewing used to do, or way back in the day Bill Russell would do. Those are elite defenders because they're covering a wide range of the court. So yeah, that puts a lot of pressure on Steph. And again, as great as Steph is, no question, the greatest shooter we've ever seen, one of the 20 greatest players. I've already got him in there, and he's only going to move up over the next several years. He does have one limitation because of his size. He can't just overpower people. And, if you run a second or third defender at him, now it becomes difficult for him. And even making passes is difficult for him because there's just not a lot of passing lanes when you're his size, and you've got Caruso, who's what, 6'5", 6'6". You got Anthony Davis, who's 6'10" and very long. And if LeBron charges in, there's another huge guy. So, there's not a lot of passing lanes. And they really didn't have anybody else out there other than maybe Andrew Wiggins, who you would trust to take a big shot. And Wiggins isn't at that level yet, may never be at that level. That's why they need Klay Thompson back to be Steph's running mate. And, if they get another high draft choice, which is a real possibility, they'll be a factor in the Western Conference because Steph's going to continue playing at a high level for the next 4 or 5 years. Ray Allen could still shoot the basketball at 38 years old, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
Steph takes really good care of himself. I'm not saying Steph's going to average 32 a game for the rest of his career, but it'll be pretty damn close to that. Bring Klay Thompson back, add another piece, maybe through free agency, if you can afford it, although you don't have a lot of wiggle room there. And then they have another potential high draft choice because they could end up with Minnesota's first round pick, which is just amazing. How poorly run the Minnesota Timberwolves are, but they'll be back in contention. And again, I'm rooting for them to beat Memphis in the play-in. And I do like Ja Morant, and Memphis has done a nice job. But who would you rather watch for 4 or 5 games against Utah, Steph Curry or Ja Morant? At this stage in their career, I'd rather watch Steph Curry, and I think Ja Morant's going to be a star in this league pretty quickly.
I mean, Utah took a huge breath of relief last night. They
Sure.
did not want to see the Lakers because the 1 seed going down is in the first round is humiliating, and that's what would have happened. Now that they'll get to at least move on to the second round.
Yep.
Because I assume they'll be able to take care of either Golden State or Memphis. Golden State would give them a better series, but Utah's better than that.
And Utah defends the
Golden
three
State.
probably better than any team in the Western Conference, and that's something you need to do against Golden State.
And
There are times where, and they don't lose at home, and they also can make 3-pointers. And just got to see the health of Donovan Mitchell. That's a big key for Utah. But I could see Golden State scaring them. Maybe going 6 games because Steph will light up 1 or 2 games all by himself and drop 48 and probably win those games.
Yeah, it's not. I think the top seeds in the East are much stronger than the top seeds in the West. If you're just looking
Yes.
1, 2, and 3, the East, it's much more formidable at the top. At the bottom of the conference, we agree. The bottom of the East is crap. The bottom of the West is very solid.
Yeah, the bottom of the West, you got the Lakers at 7, you got Portland at 6, which Charles Barkley has apparently put $100,000 on to win the title. 4 and 5 is the Clippers. I mean, just think of the 4-5 matchup in the West, which is the Clippers in Dallas, compared to the 4-5 matchup in the East, which is the Knicks in Atlanta, which is a cute matchup, like, intriguing, Trae Young, Julius Randle. But I mean, the Clippers and Dallas are both better than the Knicks in Atlanta. The West is that much deeper, not to mention, a 3 seed in Denver, which is scary. Unfortunately, they don't have their second best player in Jamal Murray. But yeah, at the top, Utah and Phoenix, give them credit. They were there from the start of the season, played outstanding, but they do have that feel of the Atlanta Hawks 5-6 years ago that were the number 1 seed and got swept by the Cavaliers in the conference finals. That's just the feel that you get from Phoenix and Utah. Great regular season teams, but it's a different set of circumstances in the postseason because now you get to play a series. So now the Lakers, they're geared up to specifically play Phoenix. It's not like they're flying into Phoenix for a Sunday game and then they're flying out of Phoenix to go play Denver the next night. They're focused on Phoenix. The scouting reports are that's much more intense, and the matchups are that much more intense, and the advantages you have over that team are more notable.
Yeah, I mean, that's why playoff basketball is different, and that's why teams who are really good regular season teams sometimes fade away in the playoffs, like the Hawks you just mentioned. Sep, let's do a little preview then of this Phoenix LA series because that's what we got now. It's 7-2. Phoenix was the team that all collectively yelled out the F word as LeBron hit that 3-pointer because they have to face the Lakers. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, they are the underdogs in this series, as they should be. Lakers are defending champions. I still expect them to get to the finals. I think most people do. And Phoenix, I don't know how the hell they match up with the Lakers. Listen, they have a nice big 3, if you want to call it that, Booker, Paul, Ayton. But I don't know who on earth is going to try to slow down LeBron or really Anthony Davis. They're not. I would listen. Chris Paul's outstanding defensively, and their numbers defensively look. Bridges is very good defensively. They look better defensively than what they will end up being in the playoffs. In the regular season, they're probably play a little bit over their heads defensively. In the postseason against the Lakers, I just don't. It's not a good matchup for them. I mean, that's the Lakers are
No.
really a tough matchup for anybody. They're huge, and they have two guys who are literally impossible to defend.
Yeah, and I think in this series, maybe you'll see more of Andre Drummond because maybe he goes mano a mano with DeAndre Ayton. So that allows AD to play the stretch four, which he loves playing. I still think at the best, the Lakers have him at the five. But if you have Andre Drummond playing 24, 26 minutes a game, like you said, maybe not at the end of a game because he's such a disaster at the free throw line. But that, again, that size will wear down Phoenix. Lakers also have number of guys that can run at Chris Paul. And Chris Paul is a phenomenal player. We both have kind of done a 180 on Chris Paul over the last couple of years because he's shown what a great leader he is and what a great force multiplier he is, doing what he did in Phoenix this year and OKC last year. But they can run some people at him. You can run Schroeder at him for a while. You can run Alex Caruso at him for a while.
Excellent defensive players.
Excellent
Schroeder
defensive
and Caruso
players.
are both very good
Yeah,
defensively.
that's the thing with the Lakers. It's kind of interesting. This is an offensive explosion in basketball. That to me means defense is more important than ever, because if one team's going to play elite defense, they got a chance to win any series, even if their offense is struggling, and that's the LA Lakers. And I think
Well, I
that's
said this to
why.
you, Sep, that 4 of the 5 teams who we think are going to be finals are elite defensively, and then you have
Yep.
the piss poor defensive Brooklyn Nets who can score 200 points in a game if they really wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and look, Golden State won 3 titles in 5 years, and people don't give them enough credit. They played damn good defense. You had, you know, Klay Thompson was first or second team all defense, an outstanding wing
Yeah, and
defender who
Draymond
could
was
guard
probably the
multiple.
best defensive player in basketball at that
Right.
time.
And Steph, I think 1 year in there led the league in steals, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but he was always kind of floating around and would come up with a big steal in a
Yeah,
big moment. And then
Iguodala, Livingston. I mean, really top-notch
Iguodala's another guy,
defenders.
and Durant became a solid defender. I mean, heck, Durant, he's 7 feet long and he's a smart player. So put that together, he's going to be solid
Bogut.
defensively. Yeah, Bogut was a great rim protector. So yeah, they played good defense. They had a great offense, but they also played really good defense. The Bulls, who won 6 titles in 8 years, that was really their calling card. It was Michael Jordan would take care of offense with a little help from Scottie Pippen, but on the defensive end, they would just clamp down people. I think they held Utah in a finals game to 57 or
Yeah, they
58
did.
points, which is just, I mean, I know in the 90s the game was slow, physical. Karl
Not
Malone
that
sucked.
slow.
John Stockton sucked. So yeah, that's my lasting legacy of John Stockton is Karl Malone. They combined for their entire team to score 57 or 58 points in an NBA Finals game. Congratulations.
So what does Phoenix have to do to make this a series in your mind, Sep?
It comes down to how well they shoot from three and how well they defend from three. Now, the Lakers aren't a great 3-point shooting team. We know that. They're average to below average. But Phoenix is going to have to, make inroads from three. And they can do that. And Devin Booker is going to have to be a guy who goes off a couple of games and has some big nights. Not necessarily 73 like he had against the Celtics a few years ago. In fact, they lost that game. But I think it's going to be 3-point shooting.
Got to score a lot.
He's got to score. He's got to be in the 30s. And Chris Paul's going to have to be in the 20s. And then Chris Paul, as great as he is, and he's going to get some MVP traction, he's not the scorer he used to be. He's kind of scaled back 16? A little bit. 16. Yeah. I mean, he's been a guy who could average 22 a game and light it up from time to time, but he's more comfortable being the true traditional point guard. So he may have to get you 20 points, and you're going to need DeAndre Ayton to cause some matchup problems.
He's got to win his matchup handily against
Drummond. If Drummond's in there, right?
Has to, or else it'll be a really quick series. Ayton to me is the key because, like you said, I think they're going to put Drummond on him and not Anthony Davis, which is what I would do if I was Lakers too. And so Ayton, they're going to really need him to score. They're going to need to score.
And they're going to need him to protect the rim, because if he's not doing a really good job, LeBron's going to have a freeway to the basket, which just opens up everything for that Laker offense. Now, he doesn't have the elevation he used to, but he's still plenty big and strong and crafty to get the ball to the basket. That's going to be another key matchup as well. I think it's going to go, I know you think it's going to go 5 games. I
Yeah.
mean, you think the Lakers may get to the finals by losing 3 or 4 games. I'm not quite as confident in them, maybe because that's my team. So you
Yeah.
naturally are pessimistic about your own team. But I think it's going to go, I'd say 6 games because I think Phoenix is going to battle them. And Chris Paul is going to insist that they play their asses off. He's a great leader. We know he and LeBron are best of friends. But I think Phoenix can steal 2 games off the Lakers, make it somewhat of a series. The Lakers aren't what they were last year because LeBron and Anthony Davis aren't as healthy as they were last year, and they kind of breeze through the West. The West is better this year than it was last year, so I'd say 6 games.
Yeah, I do think they aren't what they were last year, but I do think that you can't discount the experience of winning a
Mhm.
championship and how much confidence that gives a team for
Sure.
when things go wrong to not sort of panic. No one on Phoenix has even really sniffed the finals.
No.
That includes Chris Paul. So I don't know. I think that the Lakers, it's a bad matchup for Phoenix.
Mhm.
LeBron. I see LeBron taking out Booker. If Booker, if Booker starts getting hot, they're just gonna say LeBron, just take care of this.
Yeah.
And then Chris Paul, as you mentioned, he's not the greatest scorer in the world anymore in his career, and the Lakers have good defensive point guards to throw at him.
Yep.
So, like I said, I think it comes down to Ayton, and I mean, this is third year in the NBA, second year in the third, I think.
Third year. Yeah. He came in the same year that Luca came in.
And he's a very good player, but it's a lot to put on him in a playoff series to carry, a team's hopes on him, who's still, limited offensively. He's got some range, not a ton. He's not shooting threes. Yeah, I see it in 5, Sap. I actually think that it'll be tougher for the Lakers in the second round, even though they'll be playing a lower seeded team. I think that the winner of Portland Denver would present more problems for the Lakers than this Phoenix team. I'm not trying to totally disparage this Phoenix team and what they did in the regular season. And I think if they were playing almost any other team, they would have a really good chance. But they're going up against a really tough matchup with veterans and guys who have championship experience. And typically, when you have that experience versus a team that doesn't, the team with the experience wins.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup for them. And I think the Lakers caught a break here because you're playing Phoenix. If you take care of business against the Suns, then you're playing either Denver or Portland, 2 teams that you beat a year ago. Now, things have changed since a year ago, but I still think the Lakers are better than either of those teams. So their half of the bracket broke right for them. Meanwhile, on the other side, you've got Utah, who I don't take seriously as a title contender. But then you've got the Clippers, the team that I still think has the best chance to beat the Lakers in a series. Although if they meet in the conference finals, I think the Lakers will take care of business there. They're just mentally a tougher team. They're better down the stretch of games. Both teams play really good defense, but I think the Lakers would have the edge there. Dallas, they're going to be a lot of fun to watch with Luca, but they just don't have a second option to help him out. So I think the Lakers got a really good break. That's why I thought it was important for them to win last night's game, not be the 8th seed. I think Utah could have caused maybe a few more problems than Phoenix would. And because Utah's so good from 3, and that's an equalizer in basketball. So by being the 7th seed, you get Phoenix instead of Utah. That's catching a break. The Lakers, I think I'm starting to get into your way of thinking, is as long as LeBron and Anthony Davis are healthy or close to being healthy, they're going to represent the Western Conference in the finals.
Yeah, I think that no matter what uh, the Lakers' toughest opponent will be whoever they face in the finals. I do think the Clippers could beat them, but I think all 3 of those top Eastern teams present a lot more problems for the Lakers than any team in the West.
Right.
I think that all of them have unique matchup problems to throw at the Lakers, whether it be Embiid. No one in the Lakers is going to be able to handle him because no one in the league can handle
No.
him. Simmons, I think could do a really nice job on LeBron. So
Yep.
they have that, and then they have the excellent outside shooting. The Bucks, Giannis and LeBron would be a fascinating matchup, and then or Giannis might guard AD. They're so good defensively. They're actually kind of built in a similar way. With the size, the Bucks
Mhm.
and the Lakers,
Big
and
team.
then
Very
and
big
the
team.
Nets are freaking impossible to defend, anyways. So
Right.
I think the finals will be awesome, no matter who represents of those 3 teams in the East, because I still think it's gonna be the Lakers who gets there. So we can look forward to that. But yeah, I have Lakers in 5. You're gonna take Lakers in 6, Sep?
Yeah, Lakers in 6 because I again LeBron's not 100% healthy. There may be a game where they get down and he kind of just goes to the bench and say, let's, live to play another day. And Phoenix
It would
wins a
make
game.
sense.
And
That's the first game if the Lakers lose a game, I think.
no, I think they'll win the first game because they get a decent amount of rest. But yeah, that could be a point too, Jet.
They
If
did
they
this
get
last
down,
year, right? They dropped the
yeah,
first game in a couple series.
they lost the first game to Portland, and Charles Barkley said that Portland was going to sweep them. That didn't
They
happen.
did.
Lakers swept them instead. They lost the first game to Houston, and everybody's like, "Well, Harden and Westbrook are going to take care of LeBron." The Lakers won the next four, and then from there, they took care of business. But no, it should be a fun series. The Western Conference, I think we still think it's the Lakers, the Clippers, and then a lot of other teams that are intriguing, but still are flawed teams that aren't quite ready to get to the finals.
Yeah. So I feel honestly, Sap, I feel bad for Phoenix. I do. What a
Sure.
great regular season. It's just no one's giving them a chance, and I think that I can't blame anybody for not giving them a chance. I just don't see, unless the Lakers get injured, I don't see a path
Mhm.
for them winning.
No, no. If both teams play straight up, the Lakers are better.
So we'll see. And that series starts on Sunday.
Hmm.
The playoffs, the post play in begins on Saturday, and we still have a couple more things to figure out. Mainly, who will be the 8th seed in each conference. As we alluded to earlier, it was the Grizzlies topping the Spurs in a close game last night. John Morant was the star of that one. Sorry, no, he wasn't. Jonas Valanciunas was the star of that game.
Yeah.
With a 2020 game, he was awesome. And so
Hmm.
they will play the Warriors tomorrow. Tonight we have the Eastern Conference will be settled for their 8th seed as the Wizards will play host to the Pacers. Are we expecting it to go chalk both ways, Sap? That the team who has home court advantage will win those two games? Wizards at
Yeah,
home and
I
Warriors at
would
home.
think so. Yeah, again, I'm going to go with the fact that Golden State will have the best player on the floor and Steph Curry, and he'll continue what he's been doing the entire season, which is be lights out. I think that they'll take care of Memphis. They met them a week ago to determine who was going to be the 8th seed going into the play-in tournament, and Golden State handled Memphis in that game at Golden State. I think the same thing will happen. In the Eastern Conference, that's a tough one. Indiana just blew out Charlotte. Now, was that Indiana playing at such a high level or Charlotte just tanking that game? And Washington did not look good against the Celtics. So you've got two teams coming in totally different directions. So I think everyone's going to expect Indiana to win that game. The game's going to be in Washington. And I would think that Russell Westbrook's going to come in with a little bit more intensity than he had the other night. I'm still not sure what the hell was wrong with him. He had 1 rebound, no assist in the second half. That's not the Russell Westbrook we've been watching for all of these years. Such a competitive player. It looked like his mind was elsewhere. Or maybe at that point he said, you know what, we're not going to win this game. So let's get ready for the next game against Indiana. Although Washington had a 2-point lead at the half, so it's not like if you're up 2 points at the half, you don't say, "Well, we're going to lose this game, so let's get ready for another one." That's idiotic in this play-in tournament. So I want to see Washington. I'd rather see Beal and Westbrook than say Sabonis. That's just my preference. I don't think either one of those teams is going to beat Philadelphia. Philadelphia, unless Philadelphia beats itself, which is always there, but I think Philadelphia will handle either team, and I think Utah will handle Golden State or Memphis. Although you always got to give Golden State that chance because of Steph.
Yeah. So again, Eastern Conference tonight, Western Conference on Friday, and we'll see who will be the sheep to the slaughter in either of those conferences. I don't
Hmm.
think either of those series will be particularly competitive, though, as 1 versus 8s typically are not.
Right.
Um, so Sap, the only thing we haven't talked about is quickly. There's the coaches voted Monty Williams as coach of the year. That ties in a little bit to the Phoenix LA series. I don't think anybody was considering Frank Vogel as coach of the year, so there's no
Nope.
rivalry there. Um, I know that you're a big Monty Williams fan. Do you think this
Hmm.
is going to indicate that he's going to win coach of the year at the with the media awards, or do you think one doesn't have anything to do with the other?
Oftentimes, it doesn't have to do with another. It's almost like the Golden Globes and the Oscars or whatever the case may be. It's a different voting body. This was voted by the coaches. The coach of the year is voted by the writers. I think Tom Thibodeau is going to win that. It doesn't hurt that he's coaching the New York Knicks. I mean, people are just starved for some positive content about the New York Knicks. Look, people are starved for positive content tent about the Phoenix Suns. They hadn't made the playoffs for 10 years. So, I mean, it's kind of a cool story that Monty Williams led Phoenix to the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. And Tom Thibodeau led the Knicks for the first playoff appearance in 8 years. I mean, neither team has been much of anything the last decade. So it's a pretty cool story. Thibodeau's that veteran coach that's been around forever. Monty Williams to me is one of the most amazing stories in the NBA, one of the classiest guys in the league. He lost his wife and I believe another family member in a car crash 4 years ago. And to just persevere and move on. And I do remember they were showing the wake, some portion of the wake where he said, my wife would get on me if she saw me down, and that's an incredible message. And I think he carries that with him. So I would personally vote for Monty Williams because, you had the second best record in the NBA. You came one game within tying Utah for the best record in the NBA. What the Knicks did was great, but I would give it to Monty Williams. But I think when the writers vote, it's going to be Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah. Either one, totally worthy candidates.
Yeah.
The coaches seem to think it's Monty Williams. I think he probably has a tremendous amount of respect amongst his peers.
Yes.
So it doesn't surprise me at all. I wouldn't be upset with either one of them winning the award. So we'll see what happens there. And we'll also be seeing what happens in these play-in games. And as the playoff starts, we will be here to preview and talk about everything that happens, recap, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
So Sap, that's going to do it for us. You can be happy that your guy LeBron is, clutch and that he is favored in his series against Phoenix, though I'm sure you'll still be watching every game, biting your nails and being very nervous. But I'm telling you right now, nothing to be nervous about. Nothing to be nervous about.
I lean on you, and I like your tweet last night saying, people don't think he's a great three-point shooter, but I've seen him stick a dagger in your team, being the Celtics, heart so many times. I mean,
countless times. I can't even remember.
Countless times.
I lost feeling.
Yeah, no, I mean, the 2018 series, it was basically him with some help from Jeff Green. I mean, how many 40-point games did he have in that series? I mean, he was just,
7. I don't know.
Yeah, he was playing at a different level. That's the best he's ever played, which, especially in the postseason that year, it's a shame he wasn't able to win the title. But then when he got to the finals, in his way was, Steph, KD, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, all playing right in their prime. I mean, that was tough. Iguodala was still at Golden State, so that was tough. But I don't think he ever played. But I don't think he can play at that level ever again. That was 3 years ago. He's had some injuries 2 out of the last 3 years, so that starts to take away some of his athleticism.
Seeing 3 rims now, he's saying.
Seeing 3 rims.
What a hard life.
Now he knows how I feel. I see 3 rims all the time, and just shoot for the middle one.
Couldn't just say, yeah, great game. I was so happy to hit that shot. Nope, had to say, seeing 3 rims. I'm going to wear a pirate eye patch the next game, potentially. Really?
Absolutely. Well, he'd probably get a sponsor, right?
Maybe. Well, he doesn't need any more sponsors.
No, he doesn't.
Let some other guys in the Lakers have sponsorships. Alex Caruso, he needs a hair doctor.
Yeah, doesn't he? He should see the one Scalabrini saw. Get some hair on Alex Caruso. Yeah. Although that kind of gives
you got to have a good one in LA, right?
I would think so. Yeah, there's plenty of places to get transplants, Botox, tummy tucks, whatever else you need. And Caruso with the headband and the way he plays kind of feels like Jim Carrey and the Cable Guy a little bit out there. But you know what? You need guys like that. The Celtics have that in Marcus Smart. The only issue with the
player
Celtics
Lakers
is
I like.
Right, exactly. And Marcus Smart's supposed to be that kind of guy for the Celtics. The problem is Marcus Smart, whether he's elevated himself or the organization has elevated him to the 3rd or 4th best player of the team. You can't win with that. But Caruso is there like Marcus Smart should be there to step up when he has to. But there's times where when the stars are rocking and rolling, you get the hell out of the way. But Caruso was big in that game last night, and he had some good postseason games last year. That's the key to the Lakers. As long as 1 or 2 guys can step up to go with Anthony Davis and LeBron James, they should be fine.
Yeah, we'll see who those guys will be because it's going to happen and they're going to get to the finals. But I still think I have the Nets. But Lakers from 5, you have Lakers in 6 again.
Yep.
That is it for the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Please check out their website, fullpresscoverage.com, for this and other great podcasts and articles, all sorts of great content. And make sure you check out our Twitters for links to this show at John Sap 25, JOHNSAP 25, or at Jet Striar, JETSTRIAR. That's also where you can find our YouTube is youtube.com/Jet Striar. And we make sure we tweet out the links for you. So it's nice and easy. We will be back with some more postseason coverage. And yeah, we'll talk to you then. See you, everybody.